Hey, stop scrolling for just one moment because I promise you, what you're about to hear in the next few minutes is something that most men spend their entire lives getting completely wrong. And that confusion, that misinformation, it is silently destroying men's confidence, their relationships, and their health. I'm Dr. Conrad. I've dedicated my career to reproductive health and surgical medicine, and I've spent decades sitting across from men, young men, middle-aged men, married men, single men, who all came to me carrying the same invisible weight: shame, fear, confusion. And almost every single time, the root of that suffering wasn't a medical condition. It was misinformation they picked up from the internet, from friends, from culture. And then a sinoridici, or a sain, went chin, or chin, and they never questioned it. So today, we're going to question all of it together. This is going to be a long, honest, science-backed conversation. No embarrassment, no judgment, just the truth that you deserve to hear. Let's start at the very beginning. Ejaculation is normal. I need you to hear that clearly and let it land. It is a completely natural biological function, as natural as breathing, eating, and sleeping. The human body was designed for this. There is nothing shameful about it. There is nothing weak about it. There is nothing dangerous about it when it exists within a healthy, natural pattern. The problems, and we will talk about those problems in detail, arise when there is compulsion, when there is addiction, when there is guilt so heavy it starts to rewire the brain, when there is physical pain being ignored. That is when ejaculation becomes something worth addressing medically. But a healthy man, living a healthy life, engaging in a healthy sexual pattern, science is on your side, and today I'm going to show you exactly why. Let me ask you something. Have you ever heard someone say, maybe a friend, maybe someone online, that if you ejaculate too often, you'll run out of sperm, that your body has a limited supply, and once it's gone, it's gone? I hear this constantly. It is one of the most widespread myths in men's health, and I want to dismantle it completely right now. Your testicles are not a storage tank with a fixed amount of fuel. They are a production facility running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Your body is manufacturing millions upon millions of sperm every single day without stopping. The process is called spermatogenesis, and it is continuous. It does not pause. It does not get tired. It does not run out. So when someone tells you that daily ejaculation will drain your sperm supply permanently, that is simply not how the human body works. It is a biological impossibility. Now, I want to be honest with you, because that's what you came here for. If you ejaculate every single day, two things can happen. First, your semen volume per ejaculation may decrease slightly. Second, the number of sperm in each individual ejaculation may be somewhat lower than if you had waited a day or two. These are real, measurable effects. But here is the critical distinction that nobody talks about. Total sperm production is completely unaffected. Your body keeps making sperm at the same rate regardless. The factory doesn't slow down. The output per batch might be smaller, but the factory itself keeps running at full capacity. And here's the part that genuinely surprises most men. Multiple scientific studies have found that frequent ejaculation can actually improve sperm DNA quality. Think about it this way. Fresh sperm is healthier sperm. When sperm sits in the reproductive tract for too long without being released, it ages. And aged sperm is more likely to carry DNA damage. Regular ejaculation essentially keeps the supply fresh, cycling out older cells and replacing them with newer, healthier ones. The science on this is clear. Daily ejaculation does not destroy your sperm. For many men, it may actually be doing their sperm a favor. Now I want to talk about testosterone, because this is the topic that sends men into a panic more than almost anything else. The fear goes something like this: ejaculate too much, lose your testosterone, lose your masculinity, lose your edge, become weak, become less of a man. I've heard this from 18-year-olds. I've heard it from 50-year-olds. It is everywhere, and I understand why men believe it. because there is a tiny grain of truth buried inside a massive pile of exaggeration. Here's the actual science. Testosterone levels do fluctuate after ejaculation. That part is real. In the short term, following ejaculation, there can be a temporary shift in your hormone levels. There is even one study that found a modest spike in testosterone after 7 days of abstinence. And that study gets quoted constantly by people who want to promote no-fap ideology as a testosterone hack. But here is what those same people never mention. In that same research and in the broader body of scientific literature, testosterone levels return to baseline. The spike is temporary. The boost from abstinence fades. And critically, there is absolutely no scientific evidence that daily ejaculation causes permanent testosterone suppression. None. Your testosterone is not being slowly drained away every time you ejaculate. Your long-term hormone levels are governed by your genetics, your sleep quality, your nutrition, your exercise habits, your stress levels, your age, not by how often you ejaculate. If your testosterone is low, the cause is almost certainly one of those lifestyle factors, not your ejaculation frequency. And if you come to my clinic worried about testosterone, that's where we're going to look first. Here's one that might genuinely surprise you, and I love sharing this because it flips the script completely. Regular ejaculation may actually be protecting your prostate. There is a growing body of research, serious peer-reviewed medical research, suggesting that men who ejaculate more frequently have a measurably lower risk of developing prostate cancer. The mechanism makes biological sense. Regular ejaculation helps clear the prostate of fluids that can otherwise build up and cause congestion. That congestion, over time, may contribute to inflammation and cellular changes that increase cancer risk. Some of the most compelling data comes from large studies tracking men over many years, and the pattern is consistent. More frequent ejaculation correlates with better long-term prostate health outcomes. Now, and I want to be very clear about this, I am not telling you that ejaculating as many times as humanly possible is now your prescription for cancer prevention. That is not what the science says, and that is not what I'm recommending. Moderation, balance, and overall health are always the framework. But the idea that frequent ejaculation is somehow hard on your prostate, or that it wears it out, or that you should be conserving yourself for the sake of prostate health. That narrative is not just wrong. It is the opposite of what the evidence suggests. Now we need to have the most important part of this conversation. And this is the part I wish someone had explained to the patients I see every week, especially the young ones, before things got as far as they did. Let's talk about your brain. Let's talk about dopamine. And let's talk about why so many men today, young, physically healthy men, are experiencing sexual dysfunction at rates that were almost unheard of a generation ago. Here's the core truth. Healthy ejaculation is not the problem. It has never been the problem. The problem is compulsion. The problem is dopamine overload. The problem is what happens to the brain when it is subjected to constant escalating artificial stimulation, particularly through pornography. Your brain has a reward system. When you experience something pleasurable, dopamine is released. That dopamine creates a feeling of satisfaction, motivation, and reward. Under normal, healthy circumstances, the system works beautifully. It motivates real connection, real intimacy, and real pleasure. But here's what happens with compulsive pornography use. The brain gets flooded with dopamine hits that are far more intense and far more frequent than anything it would ever encounter in real life. And over time, the brain adapts. It starts requiring more stimulation to feel the same effect. Your dopamine receptors become desensitized. And eventually, real-world intimacy, a real partner, real physical closeness, simply cannot compete with what the brain has been trained to expect. The result? Erectile dysfunction, low libido, performance anxiety, emotional disconnection from your partner, and a cycle of shame and guilt that makes everything dramatically worse. I see this in my clinic constantly. Just recently, a 24-year-old man came to see me, healthy, athletic, no underlying medical conditions, but he was dealing with severe anxiety, depression, and complete erectile dysfunction. He had been exposed to pornography at a very young age, on a phone, unsupervised, before he had any context for understanding what he was seeing. It became a habit, then a compulsion, then an addiction. And the guilt he carried about it, the shame he felt every single day, had become its own destructive force, separate from the addiction itself. His problem was not ejaculation. His problem was dopamine dysregulation caused by years of compulsive pornography consumption, combined with the psychological damage of chronic shame. And here's the painful irony. The shame often makes the addiction worse, not better. Men feel guilty. They try to stop. They fail. They feel more guilt. They seek relief in the very thing causing the problem. And the cycle continues. Breaking that cycle requires medical support, psychological support, and most importantly, the decision to stop treating your sexual health as something shameful and start treating it as something worth addressing honestly. So, when does ejaculation frequency actually become a medical concern? I want to give you a clear, practical list, not to shame you, not to create new anxieties, but because these are real signals from your body that deserve attention. You should pay attention if you're experiencing persistent fatigue that seems connected to ejaculation frequency. If you are having pelvic pain or discomfort, if your erections are becoming less reliable or less firm, if you are experiencing performance anxiety that is affecting your relationship or your mental health, if you feel that your ejaculation habits are compulsive, that you cannot stop even when you want to, if pornography has become a necessary component of your arousal and you cannot function sexually without it. These are not signs of weakness, these are medical signals, and every single one of them can be addressed with proper professional support. Now, I want to speak specifically to those of you who are trying to start a family, because the guidance here is somewhat different, and it matters. If you and your partner are actively trying to conceive, daily ejaculation is generally not necessary and may not be optimal. Here is the practical science. The fertile window in a typical 28-day cycle falls roughly between days 10 and 16. During that window, the most effective approach is ejaculation every 1 to 2 days, approximately every 48 hours. This frequency maintains a healthy sperm count per ejaculation, while also keeping the sperm fresh and the DNA quality high. Very long periods of abstinence, several days or more, are actually counterproductive for fertility. Even though many men assume that saving up will give them a stronger, more fertile ejaculate, it does not. What it actually produces is a higher proportion of older sperm with increased rates of DNA damage. That's not what you want when you're trying to fertilize an egg. On the other end, ejaculating multiple times per day during the fertile window, while not harmful in any serious long-term sense, does reduce the count and concentration per ejaculation below where you want it for optimal fertilization chances. The sweet spot is every 48 hours during the fertile window. That's the science. That's my clinical recommendation. I also want to take a moment to talk about something that doesn't get nearly enough attention in conversations about sexual health, and that's the role of overall lifestyle. Your sexual health does not exist in isolation. It is deeply connected to every other system in your body. Your sleep quality directly affects your testosterone production. Your nutrition affects your hormone levels, your sperm quality, and your energy. Your exercise habits influence your cardiovascular health, which in turn affects your erectile function. Your stress levels affect everything: your libido, your performance, your emotional availability. I call this the optimization of male health, and it is something I work through systematically with patients. You cannot address sexual health as a standalone problem while ignoring the rest of how you're living. If you are sleeping 5 hours a night, eating poorly, living under chronic stress, and not exercising, your sexual health will reflect that. No amount of ejaculation frequency adjustment is going to fix it. The foundation has to be right. And if you are consuming pornography regularly, I want to be direct with you. That needs to stop. Not because of judgment, not because of morality, but because the scientific evidence on what chronic pornography consumption does to the male brain's reward system is compelling and increasingly difficult to argue with. If you're struggling to stop on your own, that is not weakness, that is addiction, and it deserves professional support just like any other addiction. Let me bring this all together for you, because I want you to leave this video with clarity. Notster uppergrund 4 utsam and your etc. Not more confusion. Here is the science. Stated plainly, daily ejaculation does not stop your sperm production. Your testicles continue manufacturing millions of sperm every single day, regardless of how often you ejaculate. Daily ejaculation does not permanently lower your testosterone. Levels fluctuate temporarily and return to baseline. Your long-term testosterone is determined by your lifestyle, not your ejaculation habits. Regular ejaculation does not damage your prostate. In fact, the evidence suggests it may help protect it over the long term. And ejaculation by itself does not destroy your fertility. With the right timing and frequency, it can actually support it. But here is the other side of that coin, the side I need you to take just as seriously. Compulsive behavior plus pornography, addiction plus poor lifestyle choices equals real, serious, treatable medical problems. And conversely, a healthy mindset, a healthy body, honest information, and professional support when needed equals genuine, sustainable sexual health and well-being. I want to end with something that I mean with complete sincerity. Ejaculation is not weakness. It is not a measure of your masculinity. It is not something you should be ashamed of, and it is not something you need to suppress to prove something to yourself or anyone else. The thing that is actually harming you right now today is not your body's natural function. It is the shame, the fear, the misinformation, and the silence around this topic. Those things are doing more damage than almost anything else. Your sexual health is a legitimate part of your overall health. It deserves the same attention, the same honesty, and the same freedom from stigma as any other aspect of your physical and mental well-being. If you are dealing with erectile dysfunction, it can be treated. If you are dealing with low libido, it can be treated. If you are dealing with fertility challenges, they can be addressed. If you are trapped in a cycle of pornography addiction and shame, there is a way out, and you do not have to find it alone. You deserve real answers, you deserve real help, and you deserve to approach your own health without shame getting in the way. If this video gave you something, a new perspective, some relief, some clarity, please share it, not for the algorithm, but because somewhere out there is a young man sitting alone with questions he's too ashamed to ask anyone. And this video might be the thing that reaches him. Subscribe if you want more honest, science-backed conversations about men's health, the kind nobody else is having. And I'll see you in the next one. Because what we talk about next, you're going to want to hear it.